Earlier in the week, the vice president cast the tie-breaking vote on the Senate's decision to repeal a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau rule prohibiting class action waivers in arbitration agreements. The House voted to repeal the CFPB earlier this year, and the president is expected to sign off on that resolution. In fact, after the Senate vote, the president issued this statement saying, by repealing this rule, Congress is standing up for everyday consumers and community banks and credit unions, instead of the trial lawyers who would have benefited the most from the CFPB's uninformed and ineffective policy. Well, joining us now to talk about this decision is Mike Burg, attorney and founding shareholder of Burg Simpson. He's also the author of Trial by Fire, One Man's Battle to End Corporate Greed and Save Lives. So thank you so much for being here today. So this rollback, just to put it in common terms, we're really talking about that fine print that we see when we apply for credit cards and so forth, right?
It's in a lot of the agreements. In fact, if you looked in your iPhone, it's a lot of language that you never would even read or understand, in which they prohibited you from filing an action against them in court and prohibit you from filing and being part of a class action.
So you say that this is actually a big win for financial institutions. The White House is saying otherwise. Explain.
Well, it's really not a boon for consumers. In fact, it's anti-consumer. The reason that is that when you get into enter an agreement, or like, let's talk about Wells Fargo, where they opened up accounts that people didn't want, and they charged them for those accounts. Let's assume that costs $10 a month. That's $120 per year. Well, under the repeal of this act, you now would have to go into arbitration. Well, number one, you'd go into arbitration alone. And to get your $120 back, there's no lawyer, or no one's going to really be there to help you get that money back where they've willfully taken it from you.
So does this ruling mean no class action lawsuits ever?
No, well, it means with regard to financial institutions and some very large corporations, you may not be able to have a class action. And the reason that's so prohibitive for consumers is that you could take that let's say you have $120, like the example I gave.
Okay.
And they did that to 10 million people. That's over $1 billion they've taken. Well, in a class action, you can combine all those people, and a lawyer can represent them to get money back for all those people. Here, you're left without any recourse. No one's going to file a lawsuit against a giant corporation for $120.
So what happens, in the case of Equifax, that has really, literally everyone's personal information?
Well, the same thing would apply for Equifax. What's crazy about Equifax, first of all, the cyber breach that occurred there, as you said, has so much information about you. It knows about your credit habits. It has your Social Security number.
Yes.
It knows everything. And to not be able to have a class action against them, it will be impossible for any individual to get any recourse from Equifax for this horrible, horrible breach.
I know you've tried over 185 trials, had 15 verdicts in excess of $1 million. You've, let's see, settlements, judgments, and verdicts in excess of $500 million. The White House says this is about lawyers like you.
Well, it really is, and we do class actions, and we do something called multi-district litigation, in which you can combine cases like that. They're very different. We don't have time to go into that today. But here's the problem. If you're going to take on a Wells Fargo or a Chase Bank or an Equifax, they have legions and legions of lawyers at thousands of dollars an hour that are going to fight you. And unless you have a lawyer that can work with other lawyers and you can fight them together, you're never going to have a chance. And when you have to fight them, and I've been in fights that have gone on for 5 years where we've put in hundreds of thousands of hours, and someone says, well, those class actions don't work. You only got $120. And they got millions of dollars in fees. The reality is, those lawyers, like myself, who work hundreds of thousands of hours, deserve it fighting those giant corporations. And yes, you only got your $120, but if you don't have lawyers like me, and I'm not the only one that does it, then there is no recourse. Wells Fargo, Equifax, the giant corporations, they can cheat you out of your money, and you have absolutely no recourse.
So in your opinion, this leaves consumers
Absolutely.
How you drive.
And the purpose of putting together that rule by the consumer, remember what it was called? That was the Consumer Protection Bureau. That's why the rule was put in there, to protect consumers. And now with this administration and with the Republicans, and it shouldn't be a Democratic-Republican thing. I tell people, look, vote for people who are consumer advocates to protect your rights. I don't care if they're Republicans or Democrats, but unfortunately in this case, just about, except for two, every Republican voted to repeal it, and Vice President Pence voted the tie-breaking vote.
Yes. All right, Mike Burg, thank you so much for providing some insight on this.
Thank you for having me.
Meaty topic. Yes, thank you so much. Appreciate it.